Hey, what's up? It's Stef. We are back on Spotify, and I reached out to this guest. I totally dig him. Seem very similar. Flip Adam. He's on the Tiff and Flip show. Thank you so much for coming by.
Oh, it's an absolute honor. I appreciate you having me.
So I love it. You just said you're 8 years sober.
I am. I am.
Congratulations.
April Fools 2016 is my clean date.
Wow. But it's not a fool's. You are really good.
No, no, I say that's how you know your higher power has a sense of humor. You know what I mean? Because every year he reminds me I'm still a fool. So
Yeah. No, I dig it. So you're a recovering addict, you're a dad, you have this very successful podcast. How did you get in touch with Tiffany? Have you guys always been friends? How did you guys collab?
ironically enough, she is best friends with my wife. They were in treatment together. So they were in
Oh,
rehab, and this is before the fame, before she ever even started recording videos and stuff like that. And so I got to know her prior to just the start of her starting to put out videos and do stuff like that. So it's been super cool to kind of see her journey and see her progress. And I have been wanting to do a podcast. As a matter of fact, when I celebrated 2 years clean, I told her I wanted to do a podcast, and she got me a bunch of podcast equipment. And I just never pulled the trigger. I didn't want to do it by myself. I just didn't think that I had it, so I was doubting myself. And actually, so I have the Tiff and Flip show. I also have the home group pod, which is with my buddy Luke, which Tiff actually helped us start. And she was on a couple of those episodes, and that's been going for a little over a year. And then Tiff and I have been going strong since November. So yeah,
I
it's been a
dig. Like,
blast.
I found her years ago because she's so relatable. I'm a mom and I deal with anxiety and, depression and all kinds of things. So, and she's funny as I like dealing
Yeah,
with things with dark humor. That's the way
yeah.
I get through things. But you guys have a great vibe together and you gel really well. I'm the same way as you though. I've wanted to start my own podcast. I've been out of radio for 10 years, but I was afraid and I didn't want to do it by myself. I love co-hosts. I think it's so fun to bounce ideas off of people. Finally, I'm like, I'm just going to start it by myself. But I found two guys recently that it's just like magic and we're all just dirty old men. That's pretty much what we are. And it works well together.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do want to ask, what was your drug of choice?
So I was a heavy opiate user. It started with painkillers and advanced to heroin, and that was kind of my drug of choice. But I mean, I tell everybody I was a bottom of the barrel junkie just because that was my drug of choice. If you put anything in front of me, any substance, I was doing it. Like I was never even a heavy drinker, but if you put alcohol in front of me, I'm drinking until I don't feel anything anymore. That's just kind of who I am.
That's amazing that you got out and got clean. Was there just like a breaking point for you or something that happened that was really dark and kind of the aha moment
You
or
know,
several?
I first got in trouble for drugs when I was 13 years old, right? I'm 38 now.
That's
So,
so
and I only
young.
have 8 years clean. Yeah, I know. I actually got arrested when I was 13. And I just constantly looked for that escape, and I didn't understand why, right? And no matter where I went, I found trouble. And I spent a lot of time in jails, did detox a bunch of times, and then finally gave recovery a shot. And I was in it for about 3 years, and I had a health scare. I was completely sober, and my insides were shutting down. Like my eyes turned yellow, my skin turned yellow, and I felt fine. But obviously, you're not supposed to be yellow, right?
That's
So
like
I went to the
jaundice, right? Or
hospital.
liver
Yep.
issues. Yeah.
Yep. So I went to the hospital just to get checked out, and they were like, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Fine." The doctor said, "Okay, I need to make sure you have your affairs in order." And I said, "What do you
Wow.
mean?" And he said, "Do you have a will in place?" And I'm like, "Will I do what? Like, what are you talking about, dude?
That's
Like, I
scary.
feel fine." And he's like, "Your liver, kidneys, gallbladder, pancreas, they're all shutting down, and we're not sure you're gonna make it, right?" And so it started this whole crazy thing of like I was super sick for 2.5 months. Um, my my skin, I was itchy, right? Because my liver wasn't processing the dead blood cells. And so I was itching so much that all my fingers were black. The tips were black from friction burn.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, I was hallucinating. It was a whole thing, right? And as actually, matter of fact, not to get too dark, but it was the only time in my life that I hit my knees and I prayed for my life to end because that's how miserable I
Because you were
was.
in pain. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, had just not sleeping and just constant pain. And luckily, there was a local Chinese medicine doctor who kind of took a liking to me and helped ease some of those things. And then my other doctor took my case and kind of formed a study group with other doctors. And they sent my liver samples to the Mayo Clinic, and come to find out, I have this thing called Wilson's disease, where my body just produces too much copper. And it just had found a way to kind of attack my internal organs. There's nothing that can really be done about it. At the time, I was just working out a lot and doing a lot of workout supplements, and so I had kind of overwhelmed my stomach, right? And so I get through that, and I'm good. And a coworker of mine, his dad had passed away, and he was like, "I know you've been out of the game, but I got like 300 painkillers. I don't even know what they're worth."
Uh-oh.
And I played with that idea for about 3 days. And finally, I was like, "Hey, I can get you a couple $100 for it." He said, "For real?" He said, "I'll go get them right now." And so that started a 6 month run
Yeah.
of just daily, all day, every day, just getting high.
Once
And
you get
I
back
had
on the
gotten to this,
wagon, it's hard to get back
yeah,
off. Yeah.
yeah. And I had just gotten to this point where I was, unlike any other time previously, where the only time I was getting clean was if I had handcuffs, right? This
Wow.
was the first time that I was emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually bankrupt. And I had just waved the white flag and went voluntarily to detox and then voluntarily to treatment. And that time in treatment, I did so much work on myself and just really did a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling, and just really use that as a mental boot camp to kind of figure out why it is that I was doing what I was doing and kind of get to the root. Because the drugs and alcohol, that's not the problem. It's a me problem. And so I had to figure out what was wrong with me to why I use that as as an escape for my entire life. So
Yeah.
that was the turning point.
It's interesting you say 8 years, and that you're 38, because I think at 30, I went to a little program in a church just to kind of be a better version of myself and slow down. And it just like it hit me there. I want to be the best version, and I don't think I am right now.
Mm.
My drug of choice is sex, which is like shocking to people because they don't understand it, that it can be something that can be fun, that can be completely safe and healthy if it's done in the right way, but it can get out of control, and you can literally go on a bender. You can start with like, oh, this is going to be silly. And then 6 months later, I'm like, this is wild. This is
Yeah.
not good. And so I've always been fascinated by addiction in general. And then also, I didn't want to admit it for a lot of years. And then finally, my friends around me were like, this isn't normal stuff. And I just thought I'm one of the guys. Like, that's
Yeah.
why. But, and same with you. I think, how you say you've got one thing, but my thing was like almost the opposite of that. Like, if the guys in the bands I was partying with wanted to do drugs, I would do it to fit in because I just wanted to hook up. So I'd be like, well, what's my surroundings? Like, I want to blend
Yeah.
into what's going on. But it's crazy. So, have you yet? Are your kids old enough to talk about drugs or to kind of educate them or to keep them away from them? Or how would you have that conversation with them to help them not go down the road that you went down?
That's a great question. And my daughter is just turned 5, and my son is about to turn 9. We haven't introduced the conversation yet.
They're a little young. They're the
Um,
same age as my kids. And so, yeah, it's
yeah,
like the older one, like it's getting there maybe, but
yeah, it's getting there. So
yeah,
we're starting to introduce the conversation, but it's not one of those. I mean, it's definitely something that I'm going to do, right? As a parent, like, the only thing I want is my kids to not make the same mistakes that I did. And
yeah,
so I plan on having that conversation, but it's also something, and this is no knock to anybody, because some people don't have the means to do so. Like, there's people that bring their kids to meetings. My kids have never been to a meeting, right? So
Yeah.
I keep that life separate, not because I'm ashamed of it, but it's because I want to have that conversation on my terms and be able to sit down with them and kind of explain what I went through.
So you still currently go to meetings?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay. That's smart. I
Yep.
think I should. I just haven't for a while, but I don't know.
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
think
Yeah,
it's fun.
I just shared my story on a Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago. One of the followers of the Tiff and Flip show had reached out and asked if I would speak at a recovery meeting. And so, anytime I get asked to do any type of service work, it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And so I definitely, still regularly attend meetings. And it's not something that I do every day.
Yeah.
It's more so on a need basis. So if my butt's on fire, I will take myself to a meeting. No questions
Yeah.
asked.
I definitely see a correlation between high stress when there's a lot going on. Like I flip houses. And so sometimes it gets really stressful and California real estate's insane. And I'll be like, should I act out? And then you kind of have to talk to God or talk to yourself and be like, no, I'm going to take a deep breath and meditate or whatever it is you need to do that is a more positive way to handle stress instead of blacking out the stress pretty much and being like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's very similar. So like I play the tape through, right? And luckily, I'm so far removed that the cravings aren't there like they used to be. But every once in a while, I'll have this fleeting thought like, yeah, damn, I could get high. But then I'm like, okay, well, I can't go home because my wife's in recovery. I can't answer my phone because everybody I talk to is in recovery. I can't come to work because three-fourths of my staff is in recovery. So it literally results to me in a Walmart parking lot in my truck with my phone turned off, and that just sounds absolutely miserable.
Yeah, not the good life. You're in such a
Nah.
good positive place right now and you've got a lot going for you. There'd be no reason to go backwards for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, I wrote some questions down that I want to ask
perfect.
you. The first one is what is your passion?
Believe it or not, it's this. Yeah, my passion is people. I love talking, if you can't tell,
Oh, me too.
and
I get it.
I, I'm having a blast doing this. This is something that um, you know, a long for a majority of my life, I had this like inkling that like I was supposed to be doing something, and I would get frustrated at times because I didn't know what it was that I was supposed to be doing, right? My calling, so to speak. And through this journey of doing this podcast and seeing, the response from the home group and now from the Tiff and Flip show that so many people relate and so many people just show love and are appreciative, and it fills me up inside. You know what I mean? And it gives me that drive to keep going and to continue down this journey and to just talk about life and life struggles. And I'm part of a council that is we have a meeting group here in Sarasota that has been around for 30 years, and it was at this one place and they sold the building. And so now this like staple in the recovery community is removed. And so I
Oh,
joined a
wow.
council to find a permanent home
Oh,
that can
good.
never be taken from us. And so, recovery is my passion. Helping people is my passion. People intrigue me. I'm so curious. A lot of times I can rub people the wrong way because I'm very matter of fact,
Yeah.
just because I've been down that path so many times. I've run into the wall enough times that when I see you running into the wall, I'm going to tell you, hey, there's a wall there. You probably don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's something that I love.
I dig that. I think more people need to not be embarrassed or shy of a colorful past because if you can vocalize it and talk about it openly, someone may hear it and go, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not such a weirdo or a freak. Somebody else is struggling with this problem and they can reach out to me. I created a podcast hotline and it's not only for asking questions to people that come on the show, but if someone's down and depressed, I'm like, they can text it at any time and I will text back. Like
Yeah.
it's on my phone, it's my Google phone. And I like, in the community feeling like you're not alone. You're together.
Absolutely. It's so important. That's all anybody wants. in life is to, feel some sort of connection and to be connected with somebody. And I think it's vital.
Yeah. Okay, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Mm, mm. Wow. I mean, I've received,
You should say it's from
just
your wife. I'm just kidding.
I've received tons of tremendous advice over the years. I think, one of my big things in my life was worrying. I would worry about outcomes. I would worry about, how things were going to play out. And it was actually an interview with Michael J. Fox, and a news reporter had asked him if he was afraid to die. This was after his Parkinson's diagnosis. And he said no. And the reporter was just shocked. And they asked why. And he said, if I spend time worrying about dying and it doesn't happen, then I've wasted that time. If I spend
Yeah.
time worrying about it and then it does happen, I've lived it twice. And that is something that has stuck with me. And as a matter of fact, when I got sick and they told me I was going to die, that just kept replaying in my head. And that's just something that I've carried with me over the years, and just kind of anytime things get a little crazy, I just kind of play that back.
I like that. Okay, if you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Oh God. I only get one? I only
I
get
got
one.
well, you can just rail off a list if you want, but yeah.
I think if I could change one thing, um, it would be to give people the confidence to talk about what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
I have lost more people than I can even remember to overdoses. I just buried a close friend of mine to suicide,
Wow.
and had no idea that
Yeah.
these people were kind of struggling. And I
Look at
think,
Chester in Lincoln Park. He was on top of the
I know,
world. He's come by my old radio station. I'm like, "You're living the dream." He's such a happy guy, and then out of nowhere, even his wife didn't know it was coming. So it's really
yeah,
scary when somebody can hide it so well and doesn't feel comfortable that this is a normal thing, that a lot of people deal with suicidal thoughts, and it's okay to talk to somebody,
yeah,
about it, and you're still
that
man enough.
stigma. That
Yes.
stigma is just, around addiction. There's really just a stigma. Everybody wants to put on this front that everything's okay. And that's one of the main things that, on my podcast, I try to get across is like, listen, like sometimes things aren't okay. And that's okay that things aren't
Yeah.
okay. But you just have to vocalize it and talk about it and get outside of yourself. Because a lot of times, I would say 99.9% of the time when I'm in my head with dealing with some shit and I get it out, I get a perspective shift from somebody that just completely refocuses me and kind of just helps put things into perspective. Because, as you know, when you're going through something, it seems like the world's just closing in on you. And you have just a simple conversation with somebody and they say something and you're like, it just changes everything. And it's like this weight lifted off your shoulder. So I think if I could change one thing, it'd be that.
I like it. Do you ever have like a group of friend or just a singular friend that's the good friend and the bad friend? Like I have both of my best friends, one's wilder than me and one's way more angelic than me. And I love that I'll tell them my issue or problem and they'll both give me completely opposite advice. And I kind of like to meet in the middle with the advice they give me. But do you ever go to the more conservative, reserved friend advice, or do you like to go to your wilder friends for advice?
So that's a great question. I have a support group, right? And the support group of guys that I have are very particular and they won't co-sign my bullshit.
Yeah, I like
I
that. Co-sign your bullshit.
Yeah, I have people that will hear me out and they'll let me vent, and then they proceed to tell me that I'm wrong because I need people like that in my life.
Me too.
And they give
Me
me
too.
that perspective shift. I've used this story before, but my wife hates doing dishes. Who doesn't, right?
Who
And
likes yeah.
so and I would go on strike. I wouldn't tell her I was going on strike. It would be, you know, but I'm not touching them,
Yeah.
right? And the dishes would pile up in the sink, and it got to the point where like I started throwing them away.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that's how mad I got. That's how mad I
That's
got, right?
crazy. You gotta do
And
those
then
dishes to get a blowjob, like, you're messing up. You're screwing up, dude.
and
Do it
then
all.
finally, I reached out to a buddy in my support group. Tell him she'll never do the dishes, and he's just like, "Dang, no way, that's crazy. Are you kidding me?" And then at the end, he's like, "I'm gonna tell you what somebody told me." I said, "What's that?" He said, "If you don't like it, do something about it." Click. And I was in my driveway, like about to hulk out, and then I went inside and did the dishes, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the people that I surround myself with. It's the people that are going to hear me out, but are going to tell me what I don't want to hear.
Yeah. I don't like a lot of friends in my circle that I joke wanna lick my asshole. Don't just be nice to me and tell me what I wanna
Yep.
hear. Tell me I sucked on that podcast, or I wasn't that great, or you didn't even like what I was wearing. I like those real friends that are gonna give it to me raw, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yes.
okay, my bad."
Yep.
Okay, what is on your bucket list?
Oof. Um, I really there's two things off the top of my head. I want to write a book. I just
Cool.
finished a children's book. My son, and it kind of came out of nowhere. My son has troubles, which kid doesn't, but kind of controlling his emotions.
Oh, my younger
And
kid. So, yeah,
yeah,
we're
and
working with him.
it's to the point where like I'm defeated, right? Like I don't know what to do.
Same.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of parenting. That's parenting though, right? It's like you never most days when I do self-reflection on the day, most areas where I feel like I'm failing has to do with my kids.
That's
And
good though, I hear that means you wanna be the best parent and you care a lot, because I'll
yeah,
feel guilty for sitting on the couch for 30 minutes, and I'm like, "Wait, I needed to take a break and sit down," but I'm like, "I should be
yeah,
playing with them all the time," and I feel mom guilt for everything.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
So you're gonna
so
write a children's book about controlling emotions,
I
or
literally just sat down and just started going crazy, right? And I wrote this children's book about my son and kind of going on an adventure as a pirate, and he's meeting these different kind of monsters or sea creatures that represent a different emotion that he struggles with, and kind of the resolve. And so, working on the illustrations now, I can't draw a stick figure, so we're working through that.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to write a book. I love writing. It's a great form of expression, and it's a good release for me. It's a way to just kind of get everything that's going on out. And I really want to do a TED Talk. I know that sounds
Yeah.
weird. I
No, that
love
would be
TED
so
Talks.
cool. I want to too, but I think my self-esteem's too low to be like I could, but I love watching TED Talks and I like
Yeah,
finding out some weird obscure information that I didn't know. Like I love rabbit holing,
yeah,
like going down hard on YouTube and I'll just like I don't know, I just spent 3 hours, I blacked out and I love TED Talks. I
yes, I
don't
do too.
know. What would yours be on?
And that's the thing is I don't even think I'm qualified, right? Like I don't
No,
even
but that's
because
me too, but
I watch people go on there and they talk about some of the coolest stuff, and really, I mean the thing that comes to mind is addiction and recovery. Because I love kind of the scientific side behind it. But I also think that I think that there are addictive behaviors in every individual,
oh yeah.
whether they are addicts or not. And so, kind of looking at that, off the top of my head, if I was going to do one, I definitely would want it to be something around recovery or addiction.
They'll have, like, neurosurgeons on sometimes, though, and I'm like, "Wow," but then sometimes they'll have a normal Joe Schmo that's like, "I created something out of thin air," but, that would be really cool, and I'm so fascinated about brain chemistry in general and addiction and genetics and how some of us are just predisposed to, kinda become addicts or have an addictive personality. Because even though you're addicted to one thing, I know even like love, like I'll meet somebody and I'll get married in a couple months. I'm just like, let's do
Oh
this. Let's
yeah,
go to Vegas. I get crazy. I don't
yeah,
know. Okay. I have one
absolutely.
last question. What is your
Okay.
favorite cartoon show or cartoon character growing up?
Ooh. Um, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I was super into Ninja Turtles. I was really into um Rocco's Modern Life. I
Oh,
was
I forgot
really
about that one.
into
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy. That was kind of like, borderline, like I shouldn't be watching it at that
Yeah,
age, but I
weren't
didn't
they
really
stoned,
understand
like
what's
a
going on.
stoned cat and dog? Like, that's what at least Stimpy, he looked like his eyes were blown out the whole time, but I
Yeah.
loved Nickelodeon and growing up with
Yeah, that used to be the jam for sure.
awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much, Flip, for taking time out of your day and stopping by the podcast, and I'll definitely be following your podcast and tag you guys for some of my listeners to check you guys out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,